That's it for now. I think. Don't forget our sponsors and visit them. And I wish you a very fruitful and good day here. And I hope you will take along quite a few messages and you'll be able to design your own cloud. Thank you.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And yes, I have a slightly different accent. Just came over the other day from Boston, which is our development headquarters for Red Hat. So I'm happy to be here and participate. And part of what I want to do is not have us just talking to you. I want us to talk with you and really understand what your needs and issues are and make sure that I personally take those back with me back to our headquarters as well. So this session, this keynote session, really what we wanted to do is make it thought-provoking. Because cloud could be something as simple as adding incremental self-service portal to your virtualization, right? You can do that. You can do that today, fairly easily, right? But the thing about cloud is, cloud actually has the opportunity to make incredible positive impact on your business if done right. So the focus of today is really talking about a hybrid open cloud. And that's something that Red Hat is advocating in the marketplace. It's something that we really feel you should consider. Don't just consider incrementalism, really consider this as a major opportunity to transform your IT organization. So this discussion is going to talk about some of the strategies and their implications as you pursue this journey of discovering a cloud architecture that works for your organization. So look at this. I thought this was an interesting snippet of information that I actually pulled for this presentation. And if you look at it, this is a survey that Gartner and Forbes did to board of directors. And this is obviously board of directors of medium and large size companies. And if you look at it, 65% of the board of directors in this survey said that IT is strategic or highly strategic to their organization. And that's significantly up from just 31% a year ago. So what's leading to that? I think board of directors really realizing that IT is no longer a cost center, right? IT is a place for innovation. It's a way to communicate with customers. It's a way to actually reach out in new ways. It's actually a way to innovate quickly. It's a way to get some low-risk innovation trials. It's a way to actually meet new market needs faster. And that's why it's moving up to high or extremely high in the board of directors. And so it's actually a fascinating time to be in IT. If you think about it, the way IT is consumed, the way applications are built and deployed, the vendors, the technologies, and even the economic model of IT is changing. I know it sounds a little daunting, but it's also an opportunity. And there are a few times that you get to have an opportunity like this in your career. So that's why making the right choices, informed choices, is the way that we advocate you proceed with your cloud. So you have board of directors on one side that are putting pressure on business to perform, but there's also the pressure from users. It used to be that the way IT services were delivered was determined by the IT department, right? IT determined what services, what they're going to cost, how they're going to deliver them, and in what time frame you can get them delivered. But now, end users, you think about it, developers, with their credit card, can go up to a public cloud and get an application development set up just like that. They don't have to wait weeks and hours and months to get that set up. They can just go do it. Now, that poses a lot of challenges for the IT department to be able to ensure that you're delivering, secure, reliable operation of your infrastructure. But the key thing here is the genie's out of the bottle in terms of what the potential is and what users understand the potential of IT is. So there's a nice challenge here for everyone to rise to an occasion to transform not only from a efficiency and agility perspective, but transform for your users as well. So I want to take a second. I'm sure a lot of you don't know that actually Red Hat's been involved in cloud since its inception. If we think about it, 9 out of the top 10 public clouds are built on technology that Red Hat developed. And the other cloud is by a little company in Seattle, Washington, that uses their own technology. But top clouds are built on Linux, and so Red Hat has grown up in this infrastructure from the beginning. So we know what works, but more importantly, we know what doesn't work in clouds. Now we know the public cloud world, but we also know the private cloud world as well. We have customers, one of our customers is up to 40,000 cores running Red Hat infrastructure in the private cloud. So you think about it, Red Hat, part of our DNA, is really understanding the cloud architecture and cloud infrastructure. And cloud was built on open source. Cloud computing wouldn't be here if it wasn't for open source today. Right? Another neat thing in the cloud is that it's opened up new opportunities. If you look at it, in the enterprise, 20 to 40% of enterprise applications, mostly mission-critical applications, rely on Red Hat Enterprise Linux. In the cloud, over 80% of the applications are based on Linux. So what this says is when there's an opportunity to do something new and to innovate, people have actually been turning to open source, turning to Linux. So we think there's a great opportunity for us to help you, not only with Red Hat, with all of our products, but also help with the open source community and help you actually gain some of that innovation for yourself. So what's been holding IT back? I think you all know what's been holding you back. There's a lot of complexity. It's a lot of purpose-built, for the right reasons at the right time, purpose-built infrastructure. And that's led to a lot of complexity and a lot of difficulty, but it's also fundamental to running your business. So one of the key things is trying to figure out how to take these silos of capacity, whether it's physical or different types of virtualization, whether it's VMware or Red Hat virtualization or even Microsoft's Hyper-V. And how do you actually take advantage of some of these public clouds when you have all this complexity to manage? And this complexity is really causing most IT shops, and this is a fairly well-known statistic here, is that most IT shops spend about 75% of their time just to keep the lights on. So there's a lot of this complexity, and I guess the question is how do you go from this complexity to a nice cloud infrastructure? And that's really what we want to talk to you about, are your options for actually designing and moving from today's world to a transformed world. So we've really done a lot of thinking about this, and we've worked with a lot of customers. We've worked with public cloud providers, worked with a lot of enterprises and medium-sized companies. And we really have come to this conclusion that this is one of the most important decisions that IT is going to make in the next decade. And if you sit back and think about it, this is going to determine companies' competitiveness for the coming years. It's going to determine what services they can offer, how quickly you can offer those services, what the cost of those services are, how quickly you can take advantage of innovation. We don't know what innovation is going to happen in public clouds today, but there's going to be innovation out there. So if you have an open cloud, you're able to take advantage of that innovation a lot faster. Oh, I'll put this over here. Someone can come get it for Rajiv. There's a text message. It's not from your wife, though. So you're okay. You're okay for now. So determining, a cloud architecture, I know it sounds, at this point, it sounds like a little far-fetched. That's going to be one of the most important IT decisions. But if you really think about it, if you build your next architecture, think about the waves of architecture. You have mainframe, client server, and now moving to cloud. These are big moments, right, that you really have to think about and you have to architect. And we think there are really three fundamental approaches to building a cloud architecture. And the one that you choose is really going to impact your agility and your ability and your IT economic model for decades to come. And that's really what we want to have this discussion about and get some of your thoughts and considerations around it. So the first one is an easy one. It's, start from scratch. Who wouldn't love just to start from scratch, right? And throw out what you have today. And that's really what a lot of the public cloud providers have done. They've built up greenfield data centers. And what's great is they've built them all on Linux technology and the infrastructure. And that shows that that's the best scalable architectures out there for clouds, they had a greenfield and they chose Linux, which is fantastic. But it's not very practical for your organizations to throw away everything you've got and start over, right? It's fairly naive. And there are some vendors out there that are actually working very closely with public cloud providers and helping public cloud providers to do this. We call it almost like cloud in a box, being able to put a cloud infrastructure together. But those cloud in the boxes aren't necessarily going to work in your complex enterprise. So the second choice is really a choice that VMware advocates. And that's really building a cloud silo out of part of your infrastructure. And from their perspective, it's really the part of the infrastructure that's virtualized with VMware. If you think about it, VMware's happy if you're buying their whole stack, right? And VMware has only a few public clouds that they work with, but those public clouds have to run their stack. And that's the only way that you can work with public clouds is if you're running their stack and they're running their stack. It's the only way you get portability across infrastructure. It's creating yet another silo and another layer of complexity in your organization. And with that, it actually increases your management complexity. You think moving to cloud is actually going to make it easier for you to have automation, self-service. But what it's actually doing in this scenario is adding one more silo to your organization, adding one more layer of complexity. And as we've seen in the past, with VMware last fall, they increased their prices arbitrarily. And that's what vendors can do when they have you locked in and they're in control. So what we really advocate is the third one, which is really building an open hybrid cloud. And that's leveraging all your resources and putting you in control and not your vendor. So an open hybrid cloud allows you to use your assets that you already have in place, as well as adding new and additional capabilities as they come along. You can bring in virtualization not only from VMware, but if you want to take advantage of virtualization from Microsoft with Hyper-V, or you want to take advantage of virtualization from Red Hat with our Red Hat virtualization solutions, you can do that if you have an open hybrid cloud. If you want to bring in your physical systems, for some, there will be at least 10 to 20% of your systems that you're not going to virtualize for a variety of reasons. But you really want to be able to still pull them under the cloud operating model. And what does that mean? That really means your ability to abstract that layer and your ability to deploy applications and deploy self-service portals and have portability across that infrastructure. You want to bring as much of your infrastructure as possible under the cloud operating model. And that's what Red Hat advocates. We advocate building an open hybrid cloud, leveraging as much of your infrastructure as you possibly can, as well as leaving your options open for the future. So that's the first takeaway from this presentation, is really the thought that you've got to architect an open hybrid cloud. Don't just let it happen. Don't just let incrementalism create yet another silo of complexity in your organization. Look at this as an opportunity to actually transform your IT delivery and actually become that 65%, achieve the vision of the board of directors of being strategic to your organization. So we've really thought a lot about open. What is an open hybrid cloud? And many people think, well, it's just open source. Actually, it's a lot more than open source, right? So we've created and really thought through a list of what we think are the key characteristics. And we actually have this. When you leave today, you'll get a note from us that tells you, here's all the things that you've heard from us today. And here's some resources. We actually have a white paper on this up on that resource site that you can download. But the key thing with this is be glad that open source is part of it. Certainly that doesn't lock you in. That allows you to use other vendors. But part of that open source is you also need to have a viable community contributing to that open source to make it actually viable that you can swap out. The other thing is open standards. And that's open standards at every layer of the stack. Not just at one layer of the stack, but how can you have it open across the stack and be able to mix and match and apply innovation that's right for your organization. And next is really being open and open from an IP perspective, that you're not locked into specific IP. The other is open and extensible APIs. And then portability. I'm going to come back to this portability, which is really, really important. That's something that's going to actually give you that agility in the future for cloud. So I'm not going to go through this in detail. Again, I said we have this up on the resource site for you to pull down. But think about it. We look at it almost as a continuum of openness, right? You know, a lot of vendors say they're open because actually that's the word that they think you want to hear. And for us, open has been in our DNA. We've done it for over 15 years. And just, you know, Microsoft and VMware like to say they're open. But from our perspective, they're open in this area, not in this area. So something for you to consider as you're architecting your cloud. So the second thing is not only open, but we think you have to think about hybrid. Now, many of you probably saying, I'm not going to use the public cloud. That's something out there. I'm not going to use it right now. But you know what? Why limit yourself? Why build an architecture that's going to lock you out of future options? There's going to be a lot of innovation happening in the public cloud. And you really want to be able to consider that innovation as you move forward. So you may not be using public clouds today, but why lock yourself out of that possibility? So we think you got to design with hybrid in mind. In fact, there's a new Gartner paper by Tom Bittman, one of their analysts, that's recently come out. And that's the title of it, is Design your Cloud with Hybrid in Mind, right? So when we say hybrid, what does that really mean? Well, for us that really means that you've got to have a consistent set of software and architecture at on-premise and in the public cloud. You want to have a consistent operating environment in those areas. And from Red Hat, by us providing open source software that is hardened for the enterprise, we do that on-premise. But you know what? We also work with a lot of cloud providers out there and to ensure that their infrastructure is ready for you when you want to use their resources and want to use the capabilities of Linux, the capabilities of JBoss. These are all offered from us through our public cloud providers, but we've ensured that their infrastructure is enterprise worthy, and we've worked very closely with them to have a standard operating environment on-premise as well as in the public cloud. So for us, hybrid means that when you get to the cloud, it's what you expect it to be. It's the enterprise level that you expect it to be. It has the right patches, it has the right configurations that you're used to having, right? So that's for us from a hybrid perspective, is you can get the same infrastructure environment on-premise and in the public cloud. And again, it's open source. So you have a lot of flexibility without locking. So, you know, the open hybrid cloud puts you in control. Again, this is your opportunity. I feel like I'm a preacher up here. But it really is your opportunity to transform your IT. And, you know, the thought of doing, again, incrementalism, creating another silo, right? You should take a step back, and that's really what we want to do today, is be thought-provoking. Really have you think about this. And think about an open hybrid cloud. Think about unlocking the future opportunity, right? So it's not only today, but it's also the opportunity that you have in the future. And how do we get you out of that complexity? And how do you get more choice? And that's really what we're talking about today. So we're going to talk about how you architect. You want to architect it so it's open and that you have the ability to do hybrid in the future. Then, once you have it architected, you have to consider how you want to operate it, how you're going to maintain that consistency. And I love this chart because it's kind of the yin and the yang of what most IT organizations go through today, right? When today users, you know, like we said, the genie is out of the bottle. The user community, your developers, your infrastructure customers, you know, they want cloud, they want self-service, they want elastic, they want on-demand, they want to pay for what they use, right? But on the other side is, from an IT perspective, IT really has to maintain the governance. You have to maintain the policies, the securities. You don't want to have IT be the reason that your company's name is in, you know, the Wall Street Journal or the Financial Times, right? So it's very, very important to have a balance between delivering these new types of services, yet maintaining the governance and control from an IT perspective that allows your company to feel secure that they can meet their business objectives, right? So this is a hard balancing act out there, and that's exactly what Red Hat is focused on delivering. We're focused on delivering an open hybrid cloud that puts IT in control, right? So that's really an important thing to think about. You actually can get control of the cloud, right? But you have to think about it and you have to architect that in. So we have a product that's coming out shortly. It's called CloudForms. And what CloudForms actually allows you to do is manage across your cloud infrastructure. So if we look at this here, this Delta Cloud API, and that's an Apache open source project. And with the Delta Cloud API, most people within a day to 2 days could actually write an open source interface that allows you to interface to physical, different types of virtual. We have public clouds and a variety of public clouds to be able to actually deploy in a consistent way across those. And what allows us to be able to do that is, this is again an open source project. It's got the contributions of multiple companies coming together and bringing their innovation to the table. So it's not just one company, it's not just Red Hat's innovation on how to deploy and manage clouds. This is our community. And again, if you come back to the openness continuum and the openness characteristics, having a viable community with community contribution is very important. Because that means that you're going to get the best of everything, not just the best of one company and one vendor's ideas. So the Delta Cloud API is very important. The next is around being able to create application, we call them templates, but it's really being able to create recipes or metadata around your applications and what's important. So when I say that, we talk about a specific application. It could be this type of application server with this type of web server and this type of database. And you create templates for your applications. And the whole idea here, again, is remember putting the user in control with self-service and service catalogs, but letting IT maintain control themselves of the whole infrastructure. So that's really what CloudForms does. It allows you to set up pre-configured applications, complex application templates. It allows you to not only set up the templates, but also set up policies around those templates. So when I mean policies, it's about what kind of infrastructure it can run on. It's about where. Maybe you can say, for test and dev, you want to be able to use a public cloud, and you can deploy this to a public cloud, these two public clouds, so you can specify ones that you've checked out and you agree that meet your operating needs. But for production, you can't deploy these applications. The policy is, for production, you have to deploy it in this segment of the data center, right? So you can actually get pretty specific about your policies and how you want to be able to deploy them. So with CloudForms, you can set up self-service and catalogs, but it's also under your control as to what's in those catalogs, what the content of the software is, right? What patch levels, are they meeting the security requirements? And then you can also manage the policies for deployment. So we think this is actually a pretty neat piece of software that actually, again, can put you back in control. And it's an open source project, and we're pretty excited about having it come out. So when we say self-service, under your control, we have a rich set of policies that allow you to actually design the application, build it, specify where it can be deployed, and then manage it once it's deployed on that infrastructure. And you can set up policies for development, for QA, for production. You can set up policies for public clouds, for on-site. So it gives you the opportunity to define these policies. And one of the key things that Red Hat is very focused on, remember I said I was going to come back to portability on that list of open characteristics. One thing that Red Hat is really investing in is this idea of portability. And portability, you have to design that in across the board, across the stack. It's got to be about portable computing and your data portability. We've just recently acquired Gluster, which is a storage company, and that will manage data portability and scalability. You need to have portable programming models, such as our JBoss middleware offering. And you have to have design ability to have portable applications. And one thing that's kind of interesting is that you know, people's architecture, such as Red Hat, is really reflective of their business strategy, right? So you think about different software companies, or even your company, right? Your architecture of what you're designing is reflective of your business strategy, right? So you think about it, you know, VMware and Microsoft, they want to get you into their architecture. They want to lock you in. They don't have the degrees of portability. They don't want you to be portable, right? At Red Hat, our business strategy is openness. We've built a business over 15 years on openness. We've just achieved, I think, that's something that's incredible. We've just went over the $1 billion mark for subscription-based business. That's incredible, but that really means that our customers have gotten us there because they believe in openness and portability. And that's what our business strategy is about openness. And we're designing that into all of our products across the stack. And when you hear the sessions today, you'll hear, listen for openness, listen for portability, listen for your freedom and your control. And you'll hear that threaded out hopefully through all the presentations today. So when we say open hybrid cloud, we mean consistency across all the layers. And that's what really gives you portability. And again, because we're open source, you can mix and match. We'd love to have you use all of our products. I think that would be fantastic. And I'm sure there's some guys in the back of the room who would like to talk to you about that. But that's not who we are. You know, our role is really, we're open source and we're open at every layer. And that means you can swap products out. If you don't like a competitor product, bring us in. If you think they're doing fine, bring us in for another layer where you need us to help you, right? But the key thing is over time you need to think about open, hybrid, portability, and no lock-in. And that's really what we want to help you get to. And there's a big economic advantage to open, right? From our perspective, you're not paying for software from us. You don't buy licenses from us like you do from other customers or other companies. You buy support from us, right? And there's a big difference from an economic model when you look at those two as well. So if we look at, Red Hat, we really focus on open hybrid cloud and lock-in. And I guess I'll bring it back to the beginning statement of looking at board of directors are looking for IT organizations to really have high or extremely high contributions to their business. Again, it's no longer a cost center. There really is an area that companies are looking towards for innovation. And it's really because we have to connect with our customers. We have to connect with our prospects. We have to be social and mobile. We have to be able to harness the information that we have and glean little segments for innovation that we might be able to start new businesses or create new revenue streams for our companies. These are all pretty important things, and they're all really seated in IT at the foundation. So when we look at, what's the value of cloud, we think the value of cloud is really focusing on helping you guys, innovate and deliver on that 65% level of expectation that we're now seeing in the marketplace. So I'll leave you, I guess, with the thought of, the future is fluid. We don't, cloud is its early days, honestly. And I think that's why we really focused on engaging with our customers to talk about an open hybrid cloud, to talk about the architecture that will take you for the next 10 years. Again, this is an opportunity, right? Like client server, mainframe to client server, now we're going to cloud. And what does that mean for you and your company? It could be private cloud, it could be hybrid cloud, it could be all moving everything to a public cloud. What does that mean for you and your competitiveness and what you can deliver to your businesses and your organizations? So remember, future is very fluid, and why lock yourself in or out of potential opportunity? So we think the right answer is an open hybrid cloud. Questions? How about hands? Who all is today, who has a cloud today? Okay, who is planning a cloud in the next 18 months? Okay.